My darling philosophers, welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you are well. Let's close our eyes, take a deep breath, all is well. All is necessary and therefore all is well. Being part of a great unfolding is not always easy, but all is well. The mind trying to know itself does not always leave us with clarity, but all is well. Don't you just hate it when the words that pop up in your mouth, in your head, to come through your mouth is so cliche. But follow your heart, follow your gut. Do what you must do. All is well. Even if you don't feel peace, there is peace. Deep, deep, deep inside. All is well. Don't know what Plato would have to say about that. Let's read. Let us all unite in examining his words and see whether I am speaking the truth. Simonides must have been a lunatic, if in the very first words of the poem, wanting to say only that to become good is hard, he inserted in the Greek, on the other hand. On the one hand, to become good is hard. There would be no reason for the introduction. Oh, my copy-paste just says Greek where there's supposed to be a Greek word. There would be no reason for it on the one hand. Unless you suppose him to speak with a hostile reference to the words of Pittacus. Pittacus is saying, hard is it to be good, and he, in refutation of this thesis, rejoins that the truly hard thing, Pittacus, is to become good, not joining truly with good, but with hard. So the truly hard thing, not the truly good. Cool. Not that the hard thing is to be truly good, as though there were some truly good men and there were others who were good but not truly good. This would be a very simple observation and quite unworthy of Simonides. But you must suppose him to make a rejection of the word truly, construing the saying of Pittacus thus. And let us imagine Pittacus to be speaking and Simonides answering him. "O my friend," says Pittacus, "hard is it to be good." And Simonides answers, "In that, Pittacus, you are mistaken. The difficulty is not to be good, but on the one hand, to become good, four squared in hands and feet and mind, without a flaw. That is hard, truly." This way of reading the passage accounts for the insertion of "on the one hand," and for the position at the end of the clause of the word truly. And all that follows shows this to be the meaning. A great deal might be said in praise of the details of the poem, which is a charming piece of workmanship and very finished. But such minutiae would be tedious. I should like, however, to point out the general intention of the poem, which is certainly designed in every part to be a refutation of the saying of Pittacus. For he speaks in what follows a little further on, as if he meant to argue that although there is a difficulty in becoming good, yet this is possible for a time, and only for a time. But having become good, to remain in a good state and be good, as you, Pittacus, affirm, is not possible, and is granted not to man. God only has this blessing, but man cannot help being bad when the force of circumstance overpower him. Now, whom does the force of circumstance overpower in the command of a vessel? Not the private individual, for he is always overpowered, and as one who is already prostrate cannot be overthrown, and only he who is standing upright, but not he who is prostrate, can be laid prostrate. So the force of circumstances can only overpower him who, at some time or other, has resources, and not him who is at all times helpless. The descent of the great storm may make the pilot helpless, or the severity of the season the farmer or the physician, for the good may become bad, as another poet witnessed. The good are sometimes good and sometimes bad. But the bad does not become bad, he is always bad, so that when the force of circumstances overpowers the man of resources and skill and virtue, then he cannot help being bad. And you, Pittacus, are saying, hard is it to be good. Now there is a difficulty in becoming good, and yet this is possible. But to be good is an impossibility. For he who does well is the good man, and he who does ill is bad. But what sort of doing is good in letters? And what sort of doing makes a man good in letters? Clearly the knowing of them. And what sort of well-doing makes a man a good physician? Clearly the knowledge of the art of healing the sick. But he who does ill is the bad. Now who becomes a bad physician? Clearly he who is in the first place a physician, and in the second place a good physician. For he may become a bad one also. But none of us unskilled individuals can, by any amount of doing ill, become physicians, any more than we can become carpenters or anything of that sort. And he who by doing ill cannot become a physician at all, clearly cannot become a bad physician. In like manner, the good may become deteriorated by time or toil or disease or other accident. The only real doing ill is to be deprived of knowledge. There's a Christian song in my head now. I can't really even remember it. What if I stumble? What if I fall? What if I lose my faith and I make fools of us all? That's the only part I know. Any more than we can become carpenters or anything of that sort. And he who by doing ill cannot become a physician at all, clearly cannot become a bad physician. In like manner, the good may become deteriorated. Oh, I've already read this. Deteriorated by time or toil or disease or other accident. The only real doing ill is to be deprived of knowledge. But the bad man will never become bad, for he is always bad. And if he were to become bad, he must previously have been good. Thus the words of the poem tend to show that on the one hand a man cannot be continuously good, but that he may become good and may also become bad. And again that they are the best for the longest time whom the gods love. All this relates to Pittacus and is further proved by the sequel. For he adds, "Therefore I will not throw away my span of life to no purpose in searching after the impossible, hoping in vain to find a perfectly faultless man amongst those who partake of the fruit of the broad bosom earth. If I find him, I will send you word." This is the vehement way in which he pursues his attack upon Pittacus throughout the whole poem. But him who does no evil voluntarily I praise and love, not even the gods war against necessity. Necessity has, in Greek mythology, necessity rules even over the gods. So when he says not even the gods war against necessity, means even the gods are helpless against necessity. All this has a similar drift, for Simonides was not so ignorant as to say that he praised those who did no evil voluntarily, as though there were some who did evil voluntarily. For no wise man, as I believe, will allow that any human being errs voluntarily, or voluntarily does evil and dishonorable actions. But they are very well aware that all who do evil and dishonorable things do them against their will. And Simonides never says that he praises him who does no evil voluntarily. The word voluntarily applies to himself, for he was under the impression that a good man might often compel himself to love and praise another, and to be the friend and approver of another, and that there might be an involuntarily love, such as a man might feel to an unnatural father or mother or country or the like. Now bad men, when their parents or country have any defects, look on them with malignant joy, and find fault with them and expose and denounce them to others, under the idea that the rest of mankind will be less likely to take themselves to task and accuse them of neglect. And they blame their defects far more than they deserve, in order that the odium which is necessarily incurred by them may be increased. But the good man dissembles his feelings and constrains himself to praise them. And if they have wronged him and he is angry, he pacifies his anger and is reconciled. and compels himself to love and praise his own flesh and blood. And Simonides, as is probable, considered that he himself had often had to praise and magnify a tyrant or the like, much against his will. And he also wishes to imply to Pittacus that he does not censure him because he is censorious. For I am satisfied, he said, when a man is neither bad nor very stupid, and when he knows justice, which is the health of states, and is of sound mind, I will find no fault with him. For I am not given to find fault, and there are innumerable fools. Implying that if he delighted in censure, he might have abundant opportunity of finding fault. All things are good with which evil is unmingled. In these latter words he does not mean to say that all things are good which have no evil in them. As you might say, all things are white which have no black in them. For that would be ridiculous. But he means to say that he accepts and finds no fault with the moderate or intermediate state. I do not hope, he says, to find perfectly blameless man among those who partake of the fruits of the broad-bosomed earth. If I find him, I will send you word. In this sense I praise no man, but he who is moderately good and does no evil is good enough for me, who love and approve everyone. He who is moderately good and does no evil is good enough for me, who love and approve everyone. It reminds me of the elder Zosimo and Alyosha. And he observed that he uses a lesbian word, approve, because he is addressing Pittacus, who love and approve everyone voluntarily who does no evil. And that the stop should be put after voluntarily, but there are some whom I involuntarily praise and love. And you, Pittacus, I would never have blamed if you had spoken what was moderately good and true. But I do blame you because, putting on the appearance of truth, you are speaking falsely about the highest matters. And this, I said, Prodicus and Protagoras, I take to be the meaning of Simonides in this poem. Hippias said, I think, Socrates, that you have given a very good explanation of the poem, but I have also an excellent interpretation of my own, which I will propound to you, if you will allow me. Nay, Hippias, said Alcibiades, not now, but at some other time. At present we must abide by the compact which was made between Socrates and Protagoras, to the effect that as long as Protagoras is willing to ask, Socrates should answer, or that if he would rather answer, then that Socrates should ask. I said, I wish Protagoras either to ask or answer as he is inclined, but I would rather have done with poems and odes, if he does not object, and come back to the question about which I was asking you at first, Protagoras, and by your help to make an end of that. The talk about the poet seemed to me like a commonplace entertainment to which a vulgar company have recourse, who, because they are not able to converse or amuse one another, while they are drinking with the sound of their own voices and conversation, by reason of their stupidity, raise the price of flute girls in the market, hiring a great sum in the voice of a flute instead of their own breath, to be the medium of intercourse among them. But where the company are real gentlemen and men of education, you will see no flute girls, nor dancing girls, nor harp girls, and they have no nonsense or games, but are contented with one another's conversation, of which their own voices are the medium, and which they carry on by turns and in orderly manner, even though they are very liberal in their potations. And a company like this of ours, and men such as we profess to be, do not require the help of another's voice, or of poets whom you cannot interrogate about the meaning of what they are saying. People who cite them declaring some that the poet has one meaning and others that he has another, and the point which is in dispute can never be decided. The sort of entertainment they decline and prefer to talk with one another and put one another to the proof in conversation. And these are the models which I desire that you and I should imitate. Leaving the poets and keeping to ourselves, let us try the mettle of one another and make proof of the truth in conversation. The other translation has testing the truth and our very selves. If you have a mind to ask, I am ready to answer. Or if you would rather, do not answer and give me the opportunity of resuming and completing our unfinished argument. Thus far our scripture of the day. Well, Socrates is clearly illustrating here that it is bogus, that he has bad memory, reciting and analyzing a poem by heart, and speaking at length as he has ordered Protagoras not to do. Bad Socrates. But who of us do not abide by the rule of do as I say and not as I do? So what I have been feeling as I was reading this is a sense of relief. Because what Socrates is saying, at least how I interpret his words, and alas, Plato cannot confirm whether I'm reading him right or wrong, is that, well, two things that provides me with a sense of relief. The first one is, maybe three things. The first one is that if you fall, if you fail, it means you're playing at least. You cannot be a bad physician without being a physician. But of course the aim should be to be a good physician. But at least you're a physician. At least you're playing. it is not the bad who sometimes fail, it is the good who sometimes fail and fall short of their own standards. That's one thing. The second thing is he seems to confirm from my perspective again, Robert Sapolsky's view of how we should perceive our own and that of others, the good, our own good and evil, and that of others. He speaks here of, they are the best for the longest time whom the gods love. Take note, it's not the gods love those who are the best for the longest time, it's the other way around. If you are good, if you have what it takes to go to space, for instance, you're just lucky in a way, because you were made with this low aversion to risk, high risk tolerance, for instance, high energy probably, high in work ethic, which people often, if not always, take as a virtue of their own. If you are able to be good, it's because you are blessed, and no other reason. Because the gods loved you can also mean because fortune favors you. And no human being errs voluntarily, he also says. So that tension of when there's erring, also on our own side, to show compassion and understanding, and know that it could not have been otherwise. And when there's success or being good, to thank your lucky stars. I was saying to myself, because I know I say, and I said, and I really try to do it, that I try not to speak negatively to myself, but sometimes you also have to call yourself a spade if you're acting like a spade. And I've been quite hard on myself this morning for being a complete idiot. But maybe, well, if I take on the view that I'm currently taking on, then that was exactly what I had to be, a complete idiot. And so it's good. Sometimes the gods smile on us and sometimes they laugh at us. So that's number 2. What was number 3? No, that is it. I cannot find a number 3 amongst what I have written. The other things I've written about is this view of Socrates, of course, refuting what I said yesterday about how awesome it is that men will be analyzing poems together. is that Plato does have a problem with the poets, and more specifically with writing. And what Socrates here has Socrates state is that because there's no interaction, you cannot ask the poet or the writer what they mean, and so they can't respond. So you can't have this reciprocal opening, this reciprocal understanding, search for what the real meaning is, the truth is. And then the other thing that I have written down is being good, only God, with a question mark, because that's what is stated. And this morning I read, it's quite a long passage that I'm going to read today. 2 paragraphs, maybe 3. No, 2. It has to do with possessing the image and likeness of God, since through this it has been made gracious, wise, and divine. To know and preserve its own dignity and rank, and truly to love itself, the soul, the human. For he who loves wrongdoing hates his own soul, and tearing apart and disabling the image of God, he experiences suffering similar to that of madmen, who pitilessly cut their own flesh to pieces without feeling it. For he unwittingly inflicts the most miserable sort of harm and rendering upon his own innate beauty, and mindlessly breaks apart the triadic and supercosmic world of his own soul, which was filled interiorly with love. What could be more wrong and more ruinous than to refuse to remember, to look upon and to love perpetually the one who created and adorned in his own image, and thereby granted the power of knowledge and love, and also lavishly endowed those who use this power well with ineffable gifts and with eternal life. Those who have pleased God and attained that for which they came into being, namely divination, for they say it was for this purpose that God made us, in order to make us partakers of his own divinity. These then are in God, since they are divinized by him, and he is in them, since he divinizes them. Therefore these two participate in the divine energy, though in another way, but not in the substance of God. And so the theologians maintain that divinity is a name for the divine energy. Sophia herself will guide your way.